and then we made up our own route from that point.
Got it. What an adventure, guys! Go check it out. This is not this is not a paid sponsor, nothing like that. I'm just genuinely excited about it. So it's double, but it's
Double-buttedadventures.
WordPress.
Yeah, at WordPress.com. Yeah.
There we go. Super cool.
Yeah. And like I said, if you don't want to find it there, just go to my name, TeriMBrown.com, and it's under the About Me section.
You know what is cool about it? Because let me say it again. What I think it's super cool about it also is that if you take other people who are gonna cross the West, what they do, they buy a minivan and they build a luxurious hotel inside, and they have the satellites from Elon Musk connected to the thing, and they have AC, and they have the streaming gear all across, and life is perfect, and the family is perfect, and everything's amazing. But in reality, everyone's miserable, and it's all about the appearances, you know.
Right,
there's so many of those stories out there. I know for a fact there's like family events. Yeah.
And I think that going across the United States in a van would be cool as well. Like there's some things that we could have done that way that we couldn't do on a bicycle. When you're on a bicycle, you get from point A to point B for the day, and people would say, there's this really cool cave system about 6 miles from here. Well, 6 miles is 6 more miles, and then you have to ride back 6 miles. So that's adding an extra 12 miles to your day. So we really only saw things that were directly in our path. So going by a car means that you would get to see some of those other things we didn't get to see. On the other hand, we rode across the United States at an average of 10 miles an hour. And at 10 miles an hour, you get to see things you never see by van.
Like what?
The flowers that grow along the side of the road. There was a time it was so interesting. We were going up a hill, and we crossed over a stream that went under the road. And as we crossed across the stream, the temperature changed by about 5 degrees from the cold water. Well, you would never notice that in a van. I mean, you just fly right by it. You don't notice. You don't notice things like eagles' nests, ospreys' nests that are built. You don't notice how the moss we're always told that the moss grows on the north side of a tree. Well, that may be true, except in Oregon, where it's so wet that the moss grows anywhere it wants to, and you wouldn't see the moss growing literally over the entire tree. Those are the kinds of things you don't get to see when you're flying by in a car. So it was really interesting to see the world this way.
Amazing. It's crazy because a lot of members of my family, they do stuff like that. I'm the only one who does, but I admire. I'm going to share a few stories. My ex-stepdad, so the ex-husband of my mom, one day he got tired. That was, I don't know, 25 years ago, maybe. He got tired of working in a bank. He got all the money he had made until that moment, gave all to his dad, and said, "Dad, this is all my money. Whenever I call you, just send it to me. Whenever, no matter where I am in the world, just find Western Union or something like that and wire me the money." And he just did that, bought a bike, and started pedaling, and started doing it. And he traveled the whole world for 2.5 years, something like that. He went everywhere. I was like, what are you talking about?
Right. And it is kind of crazy because when you do something big like that, you put your life on hold. But the other things that you would be doing, because when you're riding a bicycle, that's what you're doing. You're riding your bicycle. You're not taking care of your home. You're not doing those things. You're not visiting with relatives, and you're not answering your phone, and you're not cooking your dinners and doing laundry and running errands and going to play bridge with your friends. You're doing this event. And so you do kind of put everything. So your stepdad did, 2.5 years of kind of putting regular life on hold while he went out and did this amazing adventure.
Would you say that we all should do something like that in life?
I think that even if it's not something physical like this, that everyone should work to get outside that box that they've put themselves in. We very carefully create this safe little space that we can be in, where we know that we can be successful and we know what's going to happen every day, and everything feels nice and calm and easy. And when you do that, you do not grow, you do not become, you do not learn, you don't ever experience real joy. You don't get to see what you're made of. And so, yeah, definitely step outside of that boundary, even if it's as small as, going on an unplanned vacation for a week. That's more than if you've never done that before. Like, just try stepping outside of the box. What way would you normally do it? Could you do it a different way? I once had a professor say that one of the best ways to keep your mind agile as you got older was to change up your routine often. So like, if you always went to the grocery store a particular way, to go a different way. To just drive a different drive than you normally do, or to try something new, like, I think I'll try to learn to play the piano, or something outside of what you normally do, and that keeps our brains agile. But I also think it keeps our lives joyful, because you get stuck in the box, in that rut that you're in, and that's why people call them ruts.
Call them
people
what?
go they call it a rut, R-U-T, like what a wheel will make, the big imprint, and it just you get stuck in it, where you just feel like, oh, my world is just doing the same thing over and over and over and over. Well, it's because you've put yourself in a box where you do the same things over and over and over. Doing something like this took me so far outside of the box that I had put myself in that I haven't put myself back in a box yet. Like, I'm still experiencing all of the things in my world, and I love that. And I would love to see everybody experience it, at least to some degree, this ability to say, I'm going to stop doing what I've always done for a day, for 2 days, for 2 weeks, whatever it is, and jump outside and do something big and bold.
So in other words, get out of your comfort zone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because a comfort zone, it's a wonderful thing. We need it at times. It's a good place to rest, but it's not a good place to grow. It's not a good place to become. And it's really not a great place to live joyfully, because what's joyful about everything being exactly the way it's going to be? It gets boring after a while.
But isn't routine essential for growth?
To a point, but not forever. You don't want to do the same thing. I want you to try to imagine your life right now, the way it is right now, and then imagine that it's going to be just exactly that way 50 years from now.
Well, hopefully not, because but that's the thing. I think I'm sorry, Teri. I would say let's exchange the word routine with maybe consistency, because I imagine my life being different in 10, 15 years from now, but because I'm investing on certain paths. But the only way that I know that those paths will flourish and will lead me somewhere is because I'm consistent.
Right. Well, okay. So like, I'm a podcast host and I have to consistently put out.
Yeah.
Right. That's true. So there is something about being consistent, but there's also something about trying new things, because let's say we'll just go back to the podcasting. You're a podcast host, and you know that you have to put out a certain number of shows and that you have to do certain things. But I bet that what you're doing today is different than what you were doing when you first got started, because you learned new things and you were willing to step outside and try something a little new, a little different. And I think that's part of the problem, is people often stop doing that piece. They get comfortable where they are. I hear this a lot from people. Well, we've always done it this way. Well, that's a very scary sentence to me, because if everyone listened to that, we would still not have fire or the wheel. Right?
Isn't it in Japan that the government should use floppy disks?
Probably.
Yeah.
Because we've always done it this way, right? And so things like that concern me, because we've always done it that way is a terrible reason to continue doing something in a particular way. There's a story that makes me laugh. There's a woman. It's a story. I don't know that it ever had real roots. It may have, but she was a new bride. She was cooking a ham, and she was cutting the bone off before she put it, like the end of the bone, before she put it into the oven. And her husband said, "Why are you cutting off the bone?" And she said, "I don't know. My mother always did it." So he asked her mother, why do you always cut off the bone? And she said, well, I don't know. My mother always did it. So he asked the grandmother, and she said, because my pan wasn't big enough to fit my ham in. Right. And so now we have 2 generations of people who are cutting their ham down, even though they don't need to, because they don't understand why it was being done. And I think that's the piece that I'm railing against. I think that we need to be willing to expand, explore, become, move beyond the bounds that we set for ourselves. And that doesn't get rid of consistency or goals, but it allows you to move with them and through them and advance them, and maybe even set new goals or bigger goals or better goals as you begin to move through.
Hell yeah. Beautiful. And I know that all of those goals took you somewhere because you have a TED Talk. But before we touch on that, how about we go to our quick sponsor break? Okay, so give me 1 minute. We'll be right back, everyone.